I just wanted to pass that along. Configuration. This is Glenn Brenner at RFK Stadium. Can you believe a man who calls himself a professional would wear a hat like that while out there in the field?
No.
No, I find it hard to believe.
Good evening, I'm Gordon Peterson.
And I'm Maureen Bunyan. We'd like to take one more opportunity to remember our friend and colleague, Glenn Brenner. For nearly 15 years, he sat in that chair next to us.
Now he's gone, but he left us with a lifetime of memories. In the next half hour, we'll share some of those memories. The best thing about Glenn, he always left us laughing.
For you, Ace.
No way. Nice try.
No, he says he wants to talk to Mr. Sports.
Yeah, I hear you.
He says he would give anything to talk sports with the man.
It's what I've been telling you all along, Sparky. They have to watch you. They love to watch me. Yo.
Is this really you?
Yep.
Oh, golly. Wait till I tell my wife I talked to Sonny Jurgensen.
Time now to once again bring out the George Steinbrenner tote board. If you're scoring at home with us, it's George's 19th managerial change in 17 years, dating back to 1973 when he... Please, care to join us if you like at home. When he hired Billy Verdon, fired Billy Verdon, hired Billy Martin, fired Billy Martin, hired Bob Lemon, fired Bob Lemon, hired Billy Martin, fired Billy Martin, hired Dick Hauser, fired Dick Hauser, hired Gene Michael, fired Gene Michael, hired Bob Lemon, fired Bob Lemon, hired Gene Michael, fired Gene Michael, hired Clyde King, fired Clyde King, hired Billy Martin, fired Billy Martin, hired Yogi Berra, fired Yogi Berra, hired Billy Martin, fired Billy Martin, hired Lou Piniella, fired Lou Piniella, hired, there's a definite pattern there, fired Billy Martin, hired Lou Piniella, fired Lou Piniella, hired Dallas Green, fired Dallas Green, hired Bucky Dent, fired Bucky Dent, hired Stump Mitchell. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this. Oh, please, you're too kind. I feel like I'm back at the roast. Everybody's gone.
Do we have time to do this?
Hello, goodbye. Goodbye.
That's all.
Have a good night.
Glenn came to Channel 9 as a sportscaster in 1977, but as a kid in Philadelphia, he always dreamed of playing professional baseball. So how did he end up in television? Right out of high school, Glenn started pitching in the minor leagues for the Mets and the Phillies organizations. But after 6 years, his arm wouldn't perform, and he was faced with a career in the Mexican leagues, so he got out. He bluffed his way into a radio job in New Jersey, then went to Philly. Glenn broke into television at a station in Huntington, West Virginia. Then he returned again to work in Philly at KYW-TV. I remember Jim Snyder, Channel 9's news director at the time, told me he'd hired a new sportscaster, Glenn Brenner. I don't recall that Snyder said he was anything special, but it didn't take us long to find out that Glenn was very special.
Glenn was one of a kind. Mike Buchanan has a look back at what made Glenn so unique.
Take, for example, the Channel 9 crew at the Super Bowl in Pasadena back in the early 80s, Redskin-Miami game. There were about 20 of us. Brenner took us all to dinner, told us to order anything we wanted, and then charged it to George Michael's room.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the class of '83. These 16 men ran up the highest hotel bill in the history of Western civilization.
I mean, the man had a natural talent for humor, and he worked hard to develop it into an art form.
So I want to introduce you to a new friend.
Let's see if the little guy can swim. Hi, over here. Whoa, there we go.
He took sports and made it what it should be, fun.
Not a big splash either, right by the 14th Street Bridge. He's all right. Before the regular season started, a lot of the so-called experts said that the Houston Oilers were a team that was headed for the Super Bowl. Well, for the first 3 periods today, the Oilers did appear headed for a bowl. Not the Super, more like the Tidy. I'm here to see Beach Blanket Bingo. I understand I was playing here tonight.
Haven't I seen you before?
I don't think so. I'm from the planet Remulac.
Glenn would grab every day and wring every ounce of life out of it. If you needed a lift during the day, you walked back into the sports department. We call it the toy department. Glenn was in charge. He handled technical difficulties with grace and dignity.
They played the wrong tape. Do they have the right tape? They do have the right tape? Ask me if they'd like to play that now. Would they like to play that?
Have you met my bodyguard?
I don't want to shout this.
What?
Maureen, get a haircut?
He'd bust your chops at every opportunity.
This is a 4 phone book show, pal. You got he's taking it out anyway.
Take, for example, a Notre Dame grad. Pat Collins, great Irish fan. And here comes Glenn.
Unranked, San Francisco, 79. Fifth ranked, Notre Dame, 70. Chris Everett, it's Female Athlete of the Year. It's the third time she's won. The third time she's won the award in the last 4 seasons. Everett made over $100,000.
He laughed at his mistakes.
And I know it's hard to believe, but a person can get tired of all that fame and fortune. That international jet set life, you can get tired of it. I know I do.
Veteran cowboy Gerald James is listed in stable condition tonight after getting accidentally stepped on by a 1,600-pound bull at the annual Calgary Stampede.
And his laugh was contagious.
Not funny. It's not funny. And it's one of those shows. Anyway. I can hear all the calls now. Unprofessional. That's what you are.
My ball, as you saw, came up a little short.
Glenn Brenner, integrity on the links.
It's just you and I out here right now, big fella. And Sonny's over at his ball, and Tim's over at his ball, and got some bread right here. Just let me move that baby up on the grass. What do you think? Nobody's gonna know.
Yeah, I got a crazy bounce over here, guys. I think it caught the thing and then kicked back up. It kicked back up and see it caught a lip right there. Wait, give me a shot. Put his head down on my shoulder.
And then there was the Sonny and Glenn show.
Bruce, can you give me this over here? It's a gentleman from the construction site. He's hit about 4 of his employees. His Sonny has taken out about 4 employees this week. Believe me, just bill us for all the damages. WUSA, care of Sonny Jurgensen. Today is Thursday, which of course means it's time now. It's time. Encore Wednesday.
Looks like I've got a tiger by the
I apologize. Usually I get it back, but I could. Thanks, Mo. You get a big assist there, really.
What was it that triggered your...
I don't know. I think the total absurdity what I was doing.
Our loss is the entire community's loss. Everyone from the rich and famous to ordinary people are sharing our pain. Bruce Johnson talked to some people from around the region.
Look at it. He looks like an anchorman for SeaWorld, doesn't he? Huh? Where'd you get this? Earl Scheib did this? Did he do that to you?
From Connecticut and Kay to Bethesda to Anacostia, they remembered Glenn Brenner as perhaps the funniest man ever to hit Washington TV.
Isn't great? Handsome. Oh. Let me jump up at it. What were you thinking when you left the house this morning? This looks nice, huh? This'll work.
At the Bethesda Health Club, where Glenn often trained.
Everybody's totally devastated by it. I mean, the atmosphere here, it's hard for us to imagine what the club's going to be like without him here in the mornings.
At Bethesda Chevy Chase High School.
He was the only sports person that I would turn on and watch. I mean, I would look for him on Channel 9.
That's true.
You hadn't heard?
He died this morning.
Oh, no, we didn't hear.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad. He was so good.
The bicycle messengers and the jobless in Peterson Square remember the sportscaster who could turn a serious moment into a laugh at the drop of a dime.
It's a shame. He's a young man. Makes me think.
I like Glenn Brenner, that was my man. There he was. Funny, too. He kept you laughing.
Yeah, I like it.
Vinnie Walters was one of Glenn's producers, and like others here, he was also a close family friend.
This business, there's pressure and stress, and everybody has it. He just made it all a little more bearable. He made it bearable. You were able to get through.
From the inner city to the outer suburbs, Glenn Brenner's death left viewers stunned and grasping for words.
Well, you're used to hearing, Weenie of the Week and all the other stuff that he's... That's a rough one. Sorry to hear about it.
Well, it's a profound loss to this community. I mean, Glenn had such a great wit, such a great sense of humor. His Weenie of the Week, and he was really an inspiration to everybody.
When you have a sense of humor, it's a good sign of an individual's inner feelings and personality.
Glenn Brenner used sports as a vehicle, but he could have done political commentary if he wanted. He was a well-read guy. He was a very spiritual person. A lot of people don't know that 2 months before the marathon, Glenn was seeking out close friends, and we were talking about things like spirituality and spiritual bankruptcy, and after you've gotten family and your job and other things lined up and you were in a groove and you still weren't happy. What did all that mean? He was in search of that inner peace, that kind of peace nobody else can give you, you know what I mean, that you have to reach down into your soul and get. And I can recall that I think it was a Saturday when I was on the floor in a heap just crying over the imminent loss of Glenn Brenner, and Gordon said to me, remember that 2 months ago he started on this spiritual journey. You know, Glenn's just going home and he's ready, you know, and he was ready. A lot of people don't get that opportunity to make things right before they leave.
Glenn was fortunate enough to have had a wonderful wife, Susie, and 3 wonderful children, Amy, Ashley, and Matt, terrific parents, Bill and Edie Brenner, and a best friend like no other best friend in Steve Dickstein. Their love was a source of strength to Glenn, and they always came first to him. But he had another family who also loved him, his family here at Channel 9. Here are some thoughts from the people who worked beside Glenn every day.
Glenn used to pick on me an awful lot. Glenn picked on everybody, but I felt honored that he picked on me because you felt like he really liked you when he zapped you.
All through high school, when people asked me what I wanted to do, I said either I wanted to be a sportscaster or I wanted to work for Glenn Brenner.
Sorry, sir, can't come in.
Well, what do you mean I can't come in?
Wayne Academy's in session.
So I can't come in? And it wasn't I wanted to work in sports, and it wasn't I wanted to work in TV sports. I wanted to work for Glenn Brenner.
A president could laugh at him. A cab driver could laugh at him. Perhaps we should say with him, because Glenn Brenner laughed at himself. He laughed himself. The humor was his. It was a shared experience with all of us.
He would censor jokes. I mean, he would appreciate the fact that there was a female in the office. And so he'd say, Grace, we're about to tell the punchline. You might want to step out. So I'd step out for all the punchlines. I always missed the punchline.
He had a nice swagger about himself. And once he opened his mouth and started talking to you, he was like an everyday man. He would make you feel so good. He'd find something to kind of break the tension in the room, something to make you feel warm and accepted. He'd bust your chops.
James, as you see, is in the spirit now. He's got no tie, he's got a little cleavage showing over here. He's in Vegas.
No cleavage.
That's right. Anyway, the last official act before the fight was this morning, and that was the weigh-in. Both Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard weighed in this morning at the Sports Pavilion, which is right behind us. We're at ringside here at Caesars Palace. Leonard was the first to arrive. Marvin showed up a few minutes later. As usual, they were both about a half hour late.
About the biggest things for me were Sugar Ray fights that we went to. All the times that Sugar Ray won. Seems like every time we went, he won. And we'd act as if we were the ones that were the champions, because we'd hug each other and swing around and dance and then quiet down real quick when we got on the air and do our live stuff, and then we'd party again and smack each other around.
Even when he was so gravely ill this past weekend, here he is in bed snoring away, and there's a friend of his, Pat Butler, and there's his mom and dad and me in the room. And it's 12:30 in the morning, and in walks Joe Gibbs with the game ball. The game dedicated to Detroit, to Glenn Brenner. They beat the hell out of Detroit, and at 12:30 in the morning, here comes Joe Gibbs walking in the room. No entourage, no nothing, no flourish. And how special is Glenn? Joe Gibbs spent an hour in that room. He spent an hour in that room. And he talked to Glenn, and he talked to the parents, and he said what we all say, that he made them laugh.
You know, I'm sure you've seen or heard of Karnak, the mystic from the East. He appears on The Tonight Show occasionally, bears a striking resemblance to Johnny Carson. Karnak, of course, gives the answers to questions having never seen the question. Now, not many people do the act. Well, anyway, Karnak, believe it or not, watched today's Redskins game. He stopped by the office tonight, dropped this envelope off, asked me if I wouldn't read it on the air. Since he's an old friend, I thought, why not? The answer, okay?
Go ahead.
The answer, wives and footballs.
Wives and footballs.
That's right. Repeat that again. Wives and football. Not too much time. All right, we can't get it out of the envelope. The question, name 2 things Mickey Rooney and the St. Louis Cardinals can't hold on to.
When I first came here, I just said, after one of Glenn's sportscasts, nice job. And he
embraced me. He said, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear the truth. I want to hear exactly that kind of comment around here. Let me take you home and meet my wife, Susie, and my family. He didn't have any children at the time. I became like, almost like a brother to him.
When he walked in, you wanted to say something to elicit a response. You knew he could come back with a line. You knew he could come up with the funny story or the shtick, and you wanted to see it. For just those few minutes, him walking through, you wanted Glenn Brenner.
Glenn, do you hear Philadelphia? Glenn, do you hear Philadelphia?
If you're Philadelphia, I hear Philadelphia.
Well, I would just watch Glenn when he would come in the newsroom and think to myself, uh-oh, what's coming now? What is he going to say now?
I hear Philadelphia.
What made Glenn so special was his unique ability to use the universal language of humor.
Glenn, do you hear Philadelphia?
Yes. Yes, I do. I hear Philadelphia.
Saying he hears me? Hold your hand up if you hear me. He hears us. Okay, thank you. Glenn, can you open Washington's mic?
I can't open my own mic, no. Hi, Al. Can you hear me?
Way to go!
Yeah.
They finally solved the problem.
Yeah, they got people to the moon faster than this.
When Glenn walked into the office, it was exciting because it didn't matter how good your material was and how good the tape was that you'd been collecting all day. He could make it better.
The last time the Boston Red Sox won a World Series, this guy was in Pampers. Actually, it's been 72 years. They won the 1918, and then, after winning the series, they traded Babe Ruth.
There's no particular moment necessarily that stands out. I mean, there were so many jokes, so many moments, so many discussions of what to do, how to do things, how do you think we should approach this, this is how I want it to be approached. They all sort of meld together. So it's not a question of one joke or one vignette or one happenstance. It's just the total impact of the Glenn Brenner persona. Absolutely one of a kind.
He was my mentor, he was my hero, and he was my friend. Many times when you meet your heroes, they don't live up to your expectations. Glenn lived up to my expectations as a professional, and most importantly to me, as somebody who I would consider and could call my very close friend.
Glenn Brenner was an innovator. His Weenie of the Week, Encore Wednesday, and Mystery Prognosticator were staples of his sportscasts. And they were always a big hit with viewers, whether the viewers were sports fans or not. Perhaps none of them were as popular as the Weenie of the Week.
Leslie Banana was a fight trainer in New Orleans. Recently, one of his fighters, Joe McKnight, was taking on Jimmy Ellis Jr., the son of former heavyweight champion Jimmy Ellis. McKnight dropped Ellis several times in the first round. By the third round, Ellis claimed to have injured his knee. The fight was stopped. Then McKnight and Ellis exchanged words. And then this is where the fight is stopped. And then they resumed fighting. Ellis's manager, Doug Myers, tried to separate the two and was sucker punched by Bonanno, knocked out of the ring, where Bonanno jumped on him and started wailing again. Bonanno claims he was protecting his own fighter, but it's pretty clear from the replay that Meyer was trying to break up the fight, not start it. You'll see it right here. And Bonanno used the opportunity to take a cheap shot right there, just knocked him out of the ring. Meyer hitting right on the side of the head. If he was just trying to protect his fighter, why didn't he bother to jump on him after he's out of the ring? I mean, this guy's protected. Anyway, afterward, a local news reporter talked to Bonanno about the incident. As you'll see, Mr. Bonanno was just overcome with grief.
It's a regrettable incident, and it's unfortunate that it occurred, but sometimes in boxing those things happen, and I feel like I did what I was supposed to do in defending my fighter, and I felt like the trainer was attacking him, and he came forward, and as he went to swing at the fighter, I hit him.
Would you offer any apology for your actions?
Definitely not.
The fact that he even hit Meyer in the first place makes the incident, to use Leslie's word, regrettable. The fact that he continued to hit him when he was down could make it criminal, but the fact that he showed absolutely no remorse at all definitely makes it weenie. That's why we've selected Leslie as this week's winner of our Weenie of the Week award. It was a regrettable incident that Leslie started.
Regrettable incident? That's what the Japanese said about Pearl Harbor.
It was a regrettable incident.
I don't know what happened.
It was regrettable. Anyway.
Master of the understatement.
Absolutely. He just hauled off on one bad guy. It's time now to introduce you to our guest prognosticator for the week, week 4 of the NFL season.
Atlantic Greenback.
They've lost their quarterback. I lived in Wisconsin. I'm going for Green Bay.
Green Bay, okay. Cincinnati and Kansas City?
I love the music in Kansas City. Kansas City.
Denver and Cleveland?
I love the weather in Denver, but I know they're playing at Cleveland, so it doesn't make any difference. Cleveland.
You like Cleveland. All right, Indianapolis at the New York Jets.
Well, now, I understand that USA Today favors the Jets by 3. So guess who I'm picking?
Good career move. Dallas at the Cardinals. You got that Cardinal connection.
I know you have.
What do you think?
Just because he's a Cardinal, you think that I'm going to vote for that?
It's a good move politically.
Oh, but
It's a good career move.
Doesn't affect me one single bit. I think that the Phoenix will beat Dallas.
Sports, of course, was Glenn's stock in trade. He made it look easy, but you will never know how hard he worked at it. Glenn had a unique ability in this confrontational business. He asked the tough question, but when the gloves came off for the interview, and the interview was over, Glenn and the person he was grilling always walked away friends.
Well, I'll carry a memory of a guy who was always upbeat, you know, just 100% up, smile on his face, and whenever he came to Redskin Park, no matter how serious we might be, he had a way of taking that seriousness out of the day and the situation. We'll miss him.
You know, somewhere in the near future, some other fortunate people are going to have the opportunity to have a sportscaster coming to them that will give them the insight, and he'll also provide them with a weenie of the week.
If it happened, it must have happened for the good, because I can't see anything happening for the bad when Glenn Brenner is concerned. It was just his time to go, and, you know, he's up there with a good man now. He's looking down upon us, and he's probably cracking the joke right now.
I think in so many ways he touched the life of everybody in the Washington area. Anyone that loved sports, loved life, you had to love Glenn because he was a fabulous human being.
When we look at reporting today, in order to be good, you have to be critical. You have to be malicious. But he was very, very good in a humorous way. Even when he was very critical, it was funny. It was not malicious, and I respect him for that, and that will be definitely deeply missed by me, and I think everybody in this community will miss that.
He could deflate the most pompous person going, and I think what made him even more special is he could deflate himself.
The things that I will remember about Glenn is the smile. I mean, there wasn't a time I didn't see him that he didn't have a smile on his face. He was always joking. I mean, I never saw him down.
I have strong beliefs that in his last months and in his last few days, I think he made a commitment to the Lord and gave his life to Christ. I believe that, and I was just talking today to somebody who was there with him. And that being the case, I know he's with the Lord. He's up there cheering us on.
Every once in a while I was watching the sports on the late news, and I'd want to throw my shoe at him because he wouldn't give the basketball scores. You know, he's messing around or something on the set, but that's just Glenn, you know, that's how he was, and I'm just glad I got the chance to know him pretty well.
He made life just a little happier for me, and I know that he made it a little more comfortable for almost everybody that he ever met. He truly was one of a kind. That mold is broken. God bless you, Glenn Brenner.
One of the reasons we all had such affection for Glenn was because he spoke for the little child in us. As we grow up, many of us forget the child we once were and the way we were able to see the world with new eyes every day. Glenn didn't leave that little boy in him behind. With his innocence and wit, he could get away with the pranks and puns that the rest of the family couldn't. With his humor, he made sports and life fun for all of us. Glenn was like the little boy who stood at the side of the road watching the emperor go by. He looked up and said, "Hey, the emperor isn't wearing any clothes." But when Glenn said it, he would laugh, we would laugh, and even the emperor would laugh. Glenn was a big little brother to me. He was tall, with the physical presence of an athlete, but he was also the little boy who loved to play baseball and to pull his big sister's pigtails. But this big little brother also had a big hug for me after the pigtail pulling.
There was not a phony bone in Glenn Brenner's body. He was the genuine article, the real McCoy. He had a killer's eye for the pretentious, the pompous, and the puffed up. He was highly intelligent and extremely intuitive. He generally knew what you were going to say before you said it. But when he shut up, which wasn't often, he was a good listener. He was fair and wide open and deadly honest. Lying to him was a risky business. First, the eyes would roll around in his head like BBs in a saucer, and then he would take the skin off the liar. He could be brutal, but show him a picture of a sick child, and you owned his heart. Glenn had a marvelous temper. It was Ralph Cramden-esque. When he went off, I generally found it uproariously funny. For some reason, my enjoyment of his rage never seemed to offend him. He was the most loyal of friends. If you told him something in confidence, it would stay with him forever. He was unashamedly, as Maureen said, unabashedly, a great big kid. He sought out the carefree child in all of us and taught us how to play. We're going to miss you, pal. Gotta.
With his pranks and puns, Glenn nourished that childlike way of seeing the world new every day. Like an adorable and impish little boy, Glenn could say those devilish things and pull those practical jokes that other members of the family couldn't get away with. Glenn spoke to us from that innocent place in our hearts that we so often and so easily forget to nourish. On behalf of our Channel 9 family, thanks to all of you who have responded to our loss with your kind words and kind deeds. And this morning, we at Studio 9 leave you with Jeff Majors playing Change Has Come Too.